facial recognition, X-ray vision, and a Brexit mission?
Are we?
We're almost 6 months away from the UK starting its transition period to leave the EU. The details of which, in case you haven't heard, are still a bit sketchy.
As the EU themselves have said, that nothing is agreed until everything is agreed.
But whilst the politicians battle out the finer points and we consider the what-ifs, ports across the country are bracing themselves for change. Dover here exclusively handles EU imports, so when Brexit does come, it's one of the ports that's going to need to adjust the most. But no matter how final arrangements do play out, making sure that our ports and borders run smoothly is clearly going to be a key priority. Almost 500 million tonnes of freight go through the UK borders every year. Offloading and processing everything coming in and out is a complex task. Technology is already fundamental in that process, and some politicians hope will be the saviour when the day comes for the UK to stand alone. This week we're looking at some technology that hopes to do exactly that. We start with Estonia, which is said to be the world's most digitally governed country. So we sent Jen Copestake to see how it manages its movement of goods.
After Brexit, the UK may need to find quicker ways to monitor the freight coming in and out of the country from France by rail. New X-ray technology deployed on Estonia's borders might provide an interesting model. The country separated from the Soviet Union in 1991. In its easternmost city of Narva, the population is still overwhelmingly Russian. Of course, before independence, there was no border in Narva between Estonia and Russia, but now there are well-established entry and exit points. Building hard borders took a lot of cooperation between the two countries. On the Estonian side, radiation detectors and even a driverless X-ray vehicle scan buses and trucks for suspicious freight. Contraband smuggled includes cigarettes, as taxes are much lower in Russia.
So in Russia and different third countries, the price of one pack is about 60-70 euro cents. But for example, in UK, it can be for £9. Yeah. So profit is absolutely big.
But there are many other unusual items too.
This is some kind of potion from China. It's full of snakes and a starfish. And you think people would drink that to get some kind of
Probably.
health benefit? What is this? This is
This is one medicament and inside parts of a beer.
Oh,
Yeah, they kill animals just to take some profit.
Nikolai also showed me some of the low-tech methods people use to smuggle goods.
do I look suspicious?
A bit. Show me what you have there. Looks like nothing, but sorry. You have
Cigarettes.
some cigarettes here.
Estonia has invested millions of pounds in 5 new X-ray scanners from Chinese company NukeTech. They automatically check their trains without stopping them.
How does the scanner recognize that this is a freight train rather than a passenger train?
For this, we have special sensors installed at the rails. It's a first type of sensors, and the second type of sensors located on the bridge. It looks like a camera.
Yep.
And both sensors have to give X-ray a signal that this wagon is freight wagon, not passenger one.
Does Russia have something similar on its side?
No.
Okay.
No.
Is it relying on you guys
It's a way of cooperation. So if for the outbound traffic we see something suspicious, we will forward this information to the Russian side.
The scanner has made inspection of trains 10 to 50 times faster. The X-ray images are shared in a central area.
All Estonian, Latvian and Lithuanian X-rays actually connected to one network. So we can learn from other borders images and compare with said pictures, and that gives us much bigger database.
Estonia is already looking at ways computers can speed up the process, further reducing checking times.
It's nice to have very modern railway X-rays, but the analyzation of the images must develop to the next level, not made by human. But I believe that our future is machine learning and artificial intelligence regarding checking these pictures.
Is this something that you could see being of use in the Eurotunnel between France and England?
Why not? Why not? Automatic, safe system to be used everywhere.
That was Jen. Back in Britain, a Southampton-based company has been looking at ways to detect passive radiation in cargo. It's developed highly sensitive detectors to do this by highlighting gamma and neutron rays. In the past, the equipment would just tell you that there was radiation present, but with many everyday materials such as salt or fertiliser having natural levels of radiation, this could pose real delays for customs officers.
This new type of equipment can tell you exactly what the material is. It tells you what type of source it would be, and they can use that so that they can compare it with manifests and understand better whether or not they're expecting that radiation.
In the case of this truck, it signalled some radioactive material identified as potassium chloride salt. And where vehicles can't be moved through the radiation monitors, the solution is to instead use a mobile version to travel around the cargo, picking up emissions from at least 2.5 metres away. This high-level detection is just one element of an €11.8 million EU-funded project called Seaboard. It's trialling cutting-edge science and artificial intelligence to help smooth borders across the continent.
The more information we can get for each cargo, the easier it is for customs to determine whether or not that cargo is legal and can pass the border.
And yes, whilst that's the aim, Brexit is around the corner. I sat down with Accenture's head of border services. He'd been speaking at a UK select committee hearing this week about the future of our borders. The question of timing was high on the agenda.
To complete a full system by March wouldn't be possible. Wouldn't be possible.
Of course, there is a bit of a clash going on here between the fact that you need to get systems up and running quickly, and if you took your time, you could create the perfect technologies to do the job in an ideal way.
In some ways, Brexit is an event. It requires transformation at the border, but it also gives us an opportunity to create a border that is world-leading, that is one that provides the UK with a really strong asset so that it can trade effectively with the world, it can protect society and provide advantages for us when we are trading with, whether it's the EU or the rest of the world.
What evolving technologies being developed at the moment do you think are particularly relevant to the move post-Brexit?
Well, let's pick a few. The Internet of Things, exciting technology. What does that mean for the border? Well, in summary, everything is connected to the internet, and therefore that gives us an opportunity to see where things are at any point. Blockchain, often talked about. What does that mean for a border process? Well, to move things across a border, we really need to trust the users, the traders, and what they're sending. Blockchain helps us to move from relying on what they're saying is true to bringing a verifiable truth to what is in that supply chain. Artificial intelligence, well, that's basically helping machines help people. How can we move some decisions that are made by people to be made by machines?
Hello and welcome to the Week in Tech. It was the week when Apple once again took to the stage announcing new devices, revealing 3 new models of the iPhone, with 2 being their largest size yet and carrying the largest price tag. And the new Apple Watch features an electrocardiogram, with the US Food and Drug Administration approving the watch as a medical device. It was also the week when Google fought against legislation that will extend EU citizens' right to be forgotten to apply globally. Facebook's AI named Rosetta has learnt to look at images with text and interpret their meaning to better understand memes, and smart TVs made by Vizio could soon be telling its owners how to sue its makers. It was also the week when EU Parliament approved 2 new controversial copyright rules, which could force content providers to apply strict checks to videos posted on their sites. But some campaigners argue it could mean the end of these. The soon-to-be-released FIFA 19 game is under investigation in Belgium for keeping loot boxes in the new edition. The country's gaming commission has banned the feature, saying it is similar to online gambling, which is illegal in the country. And finally, meet Hal, the robot designed to train medical staff treating children.
Hi, I'm Pediatric Hal.
The humanoid bot has a pulse, can cry, bleed and talk. It can also be remotely set to go into anaphylactic shock and into cardiac arrest. But the company who make the robot say it is disappointed that people find it creepy and that none of the medical staff who train with Hal find him nightmarish.
Now, crossing borders isn't just about goods. It's also, of course, about people, and a lot of them travelling at one time. We all know how busy those immigration queues can get. So I've come to see one company that hopes they can make the process a lot easier. So easy, in fact, that you may not even need to take your passport in future. Here at CETA's UK base, they're hoping airport queues and barriers could eventually become things of the past. But right now, they need to develop what could plausibly be put in place. Well, this piece of kit is something you may already be familiar with, as they have been deployed in airports throughout the world. But the thing you're less likely to have seen is how this is playing out behind the scenes. Immigration officers would then see all 3 photos match up and be privy to information from national databases and watch lists. And here we have the self-service checkout of immigration. OK, that's not what it's actually called, but these kiosks are already in some US airports, and apparently they've helped people through the queues 4 times faster. This will also authenticate a person is who they say they are, as well as get through some of those routine questions. Then I'm presented with a receipt which I need to take to an officer, but of course that involves dealing with a person, a piece of paper, and I still need my passport. But the idea here is that none of this needs to be necessary. The SmartPath mobile app is currently being trialled in Brisbane and the Middle East. Much like the process with the other machines, your passport will be visually checked as well as monitoring the chip. That data will be sent to CETA's BioAuthenticate server, which will then be matched to a selfie. Yes, a selfie that you take to prove that you're the passport holder. Then when you're travelling, this electronic document would be ready to link to your journey. It could do so by scanning and validating your boarding pass, or possibly through integration with an airline's app.
Now I have a token created in the phone that has linked my passport, my face and my boarding pass. Now all I need to do is when I go to a SmartPath touch point, as we call them, with that check-in or security or bag drop, all I need to use is my face. I don't need to get any of these documents out of my bag.
OK, so your face becomes your passport.
My face becomes my passport.
I still feel quite uneasy about putting my passport on a phone. How comfortable do you think people are going to be with that?
It takes some getting used to, but everybody has a phone. Everybody trusts the data in that phone as well. The passport is a very secure document, very valid, but you still have to carry it, and they are lost a lot.
The company does acknowledge that biometrics can prove a challenge to use with children. But one survey suggests that 82% of people do want a biometric passport on their phone. How does this process done through technology compare to a human being doing it?
Humans are far, far better at determining intent and also the behavioural detection officers are very good at that sixth sense. Something's not right about an individual. But what a machine is very, very good at is the mechanical checking, and particularly facial matching.
But surely the real issue that you actually now need to overcome is the authorities and regulation. How plausible do you think it is to reach a point that this could be deployed internationally?
We are seeing this drive from governments. They're out there now working with systems integrators and system providers such as CETA to push technology within the regulatory framework as much as you can. So I foresee an airport of the future having biometric tokens. So rather than technology being touch points that you have to stop at, sticky points, it's about a seamless experience through the airport, a frictionless travel. And indeed there are trials and discussions around immigration tunnels. So no physical barrier, but rather like a customs channel, you walk through and there is exception intervention. So in other words, if somebody is identified through biometrics or through that behavioural detection that somebody is of interest, they can be pulled out of a line rather than everybody being stopped in the process.
So we've seen the technology that can make a difference to the process of moving through the airport, but how about those final moments before you board the plane? Well, Nick Queck heard there was some technology the other side of the Atlantic that could help, so he couldn't pack his bags quickly enough.
Today, I'm off to Bermuda. I've checked in using my passport. I've breezed through security using my passport. And now I'm boarding my flight, not using my passport.
Perfect, look straight up there.
Okay, so I'm not really going on my hollybobs to a tropical island, but I could if I didn't have to get back to the office. Thanks, boss.
Put your feet right on the circle for me. Look right up here.
Good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen. We are using a new self-boarding process that takes a quick photo capture.
JetBlue has temporarily booked me onto its 11 o'clock flight from Boston Logan Airport. So what you're seeing is the current passenger experience playing out. Like the app Lara's been exploring, here they're using facial verification in place of passports. Passengers, should they wish, can simply walk up to this tablet on a stick, present their face, and get the green light to step on board.
Good morning, sir. How are you today?
No passport needed, no boarding pass needed. There's no physical barrier either. Perfect if you've misplaced your documents in your second oversized carry-on. Not so good if you're camera shy.
I'm surprised by how quickly people are boarding. And another thing that's impressive is that it seems to recognise people's faces regardless of how tall they are. Even children seem to be boarding pretty well.
The FacePod by CETA has an extremely wide camera lens to help it capture people of all heights. It takes 55 snaps per second, so it doesn't miss you.
Thank you so kindly.
We boarded close to a full flight of 150 customers in under 20 minutes. That's close to a 10-minute improvement from our typical boarding time, where we usually allot about 30 minutes for boarding.
Now, before you go cutting up your government-issued ID, there are a number of things that stand in the way of you and that gleaming green tick. Passengers that check in online can't use it. Travellers without e-passports need not apply. And if you check in at the airport using any other means than your passport, you will still need to show your papers to a human at the gate as normal, before you can board. So, what does the US Department of Homeland Security think about this?
It increases our processing speed in our accuracy of our inspections, but the real value is that it allows our officers to focus on the enforcement mission. It allows them to focus on talking to people and enforcing CBP's laws and regulations.
The self-boarding system also provides a digital record of exit checks. But of course, passengers are giving more biometric data to the government in return of speedy boarding. But is using just your face secure enough?
You know, it's passed our security checks so far. At the headquarters level, we have a very rigorous process, and of course, we're not going to ever agree to enter into something that's going to weaken our posture.
Now, the facial boarding technology has been trialled here for the past 6 months, but there are other systems like it dotted around various airports in America. But it's not the technology, it's regulation which is standing in the way from worldwide rollout.
In many countries, an officer must see your physical ID before you may depart. And of course at the other end, you'll still need your papers because different countries will have different border regulations. But in an increasingly digital world, this facial boarding is taking us a step closer to leaving our paper books behind.
There are games about alien invasions. There are games about raiding tombs while solving head-scratching puzzles. There are even games about experiencing the thrill of simulating life as a goat. But a game about Brexit, now that is unusual. Forget hard Brexit. This is Black Mirror meets a 16-bit Yes Minister. Not Tonight imagines a dystopian future where the very worst kind of Brexit has occurred. Anybody in the UK of European heritage has been relocated to ghettos and can only find low-paid employment. The player must earn a certain amount of cash in order to remain in the UK. This is the product of an indie development team, and they've tasked the player with working as a bouncer. The early stages of the game are spent being employed by pubs and clubs.
By the end of the game, a very severely right-wing government has been put into place, and by that point you're making horrible decisions about, say, the landlords will ask you, don't let any of this kind of person in tonight, and you have to try and decide whether you want to follow their rules or not. By the very end, you're doing very silly things like working border control on the Dover border and on the London Wall. It's very satirical.
What inspired you to make a game about Brexit?
Let's put it this way, there's a lot of inspiration for a dystopia at the moment. And Not Tonight was just a great opportunity to represent a kind of British dystopia, which I think is quite unique. I grew up in Somerset and I remember being slightly underage, trying to get into various night spots around Somerset. And that always had a big impact on me because all my friends were a year older. And then the working simulator gameplay came along, games like Papers, Please. And they were a big inspiration. And then on top of that, Brexit happened. And the juxtaposition of trying to get into a nightclub venue or a party or a house party compared to letting someone into the country, it really kind of hit a note with me.
Do you think games should tackle more weighty subject matter?
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. We've seen some elements of it in larger games, for example, Wolfenstein.
You still got some Nazi fighting killing skills up in you?
With their reimagination of America. But as an independent developer, we really have an opportunity to publish something different and something political. And I think that's a good thing. There should be more politics in games.
To be honest, I would love to see some big negative responses to it because we want to get both sides talking, right? Because if it's just people who voted Remain sharing this game around, that seems quite pointless.
That was Mark, and that's it for our Click Border Technology special. With 6 months to go until Brexit, there's a week of theme programming across the BBC. But to keep up with the Click team, you can find us on Facebook and Twitter at BBC Click, and of course, we'll be back next week.